It is time. 2022 is over, and I listened to a ton of albums this year. I listened to some really, really terrible ones, but today we're going to be talking about my top 50 of the year. My favorite ones, the best ones, in my opinion. So let's do that. Just like my songs of the year list, we're going to run through the first half or so, starting with The Overload by British post-punk band Yard Act, and then we're moving on to, at 49, Stumpwork by Dry Cleaning. Some of the most beautiful songwriting of the year is on that record. And at 48 is Gemini Rights by Steve Lacy. It's got its sentimental songs, it's got its bangers. I actually love the kind of quirky Steve Lacy lyricism. 47 is A Light for Attracting Attention, The Smile. This one has been kind of divisive. I really loved it though. I love the atmosphere. I think it sounds like a really good Radiohead album, but not a great one. Coming in at 46 is the drop dead gorgeous indie folk album Quiet the Room by Skullcrusher. At 45 is the conceptual I Didn't Mean to Haunt You by Quadeca. A lot of people love that record this year. I guess I didn't love it as much as some others, but I still think it is great. 44 is the Screamo album Fawn by Foxtails. 43 is one of the most interesting R&B records of the year, HYPNOS by up-and-coming artist Ravyn Lenae. At 42 is Actual Life 3 from Fred Again, definitely one of the best EDM records of the year. At 41 is the alternative pop record American Girl from Kilo Kish. So many bangers on that album. At 40 is an album that grew on me a lot this year, Dawn FM by The Weeknd. Not my favorite lyricism of the year, but the way that this album flows from track to track is so cool. 39 is Pre-Pleasure by Julia Jacklin, some of the best indie rock songwriting of the year. At 38 is In the Darkness, The Heart's Aglow by Wise Blood. Not quite as amazing as Titanic Rising, but still an amazingly beautiful album from her. At 37 is the downright relentless punk record Diaspora Problems from Soul Glow. 36 is Hellfire by Black Mini. I know a lot of people have this higher. I guess I'm in the minority for liking Cavalcade a little bit more, but I still think this album rips. At 35 is The Loser by Gospel. 34 is Cave World by Viagra Boys, an album that is just so crazy, so conceptual in its lyrics, but every single song on this album hits crazy hard. It's totally unhinged at the same time though. At 33 is Blue Rev by Alvvays, an album that this one also grew on me a lot. A very cohesive record from them, not quite Antisocialites level, but I still really liked it. 32 is Ethiops by Billy Woods, a dark, gritty, texture-filled album with a lot of thought put into the lyricism. 31 is King's Disease 3 by Nas, full of bangers. Nas has been killing it lately. At 30 is Beatopia by Beabadoobie, one of the best indie rock albums of the year. It's sweet at points, really cute, but also kind of sentimental and sad too. At 29 is Ugly Season by Perfume Genius, one of the craziest sounding albums of the year, easily, in terms of production and instrumentation. So much effort was clearly put into making this album sound that way. It's kind of all over the place, but it also has a central idea. I think it's one of the best experimental albums this year. Age, Sex, Location, Ari Lennox is at 28, one of the most consistent R&B albums of the year. The songwriting on that record is fantastic. 27 is SOS by SZA. I wish it was cut down a little bit, but the highlights on this album are some of the best of the year. Love for Rent by Smino is at 26, a kind of loungy, laid-back hip-hop album. Barely didn't make the top 25, but definitely worth a listen. We are in the top half now, starting with Melt My Eyes, See Your Future by Denzel Curry. This man refuses to miss. This album is so well produced. Some of the craziest beats of the year are on this record, and Denzel kills it every single time. I wish there were less bars about masks and I guess getting canceled on this record. I'm kind of tired of those topics, but besides that, Denzel absolutely murders everything about this album. It's not his best record, but it is definitely one of the best hip-hop albums of the year. At 24 is the 2000s inspired Painless by Nilufer Yanya. Not many records sound like this right now, and I love how it stands out from the crowd. It also has some amazing songwriting. The highlights of this album are some of my favorite songs of the year. At 23 is the sprawling and beautiful and epic Everything Was Beautiful by Spiritualized. At 22 is Once Twice Melody from legendary dream pop group Beach House. This album does evolve the Beach House style sound a little bit, but for the most part, they're sticking to their roots. This record has been in the works forever. It came out in kind of an EP form, which I'm not sure if I love or not, but the final product is really, really good, so who am I to complain? Coming in at 20 is the jazz fusion album Not Tight from DOMi and BECK. This is a great breakout record from them with a lot of really interesting features. They clearly have some pull and people really respect them because there's some big names on here like Anderson .Paak. And most importantly, there's great chemistry between the feature artists and DOMi and BECK. The instrumentation in this album is also so fantastic. Definitely check this one out if you're into jazz fusion music. At 19 is The Loneliest Time from Carly Rae Jepsen, another artist that refuses to miss. Oh my god, the pop bangers on here are fantastic. It sounds different from her other albums, but the songwriting at its core is still the same. There's emotion level bangers on here, but there's also like a country song that could bring you to tears. I love the diversity on it. At 18 is LOUIE by Kenny Beats, some of the best hip-hop production of the entire year. This is an instrumental hip-hop album that just shines so bright that I had to put it in the top 20. 17 is Dark Life by Death's Dynamic Shroud. This is one of the craziest electronic albums you'll hear from this year. Oh my god, the sound design on this album is insane. At 16 is God Don't Make Mistakes by Griselda's Conway the Machine. Conway's obviously been killing it lately, but this album has something really special about it. This is the best rapping I've ever heard from Conway, and just as a project, it's so buttoned up and perfected. This album is his best record ever. And at 15 is Glitch Princess by Yule. This sounds like the future of pop music, and I mean that in the best way possible. Oh my god, the builds on this album, the glitchy production is so great. 14, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, a confessional, beautiful, and ambitious album from Kendrick. This doesn't really sound like his other records. It draws elements from his other albums, but this definitely is its own thing. At 13 is Dragon New Warm Mountain I Believe in You by Big Thief. Oh my god, the best songwriting of the year is all over this record. Simulation Swarm is obviously my song of the year if you haven't seen that video. Love, love, love that track. I could do without some of the bluegrass tracks just because this is a very long album already, and I'd rather it just be a folk album through and through, but the bluegrass songs are great as well. Moving on to 12, Florist by Florist, the self-titled album. I guess this is kind of my folk album of the year. It just came out of nowhere, but some of the most beautiful atmospheres are built on this album. Oh my god, the songwriting is so gorgeous. Definitely check that one out if you haven't. At 11 is the smallest artist on this list, AV with the UK with their new album Pornoviolence. People have called this British Death Grips, but I think it's more than that. It obviously draws from a lot of different inspirations. It's kind of an experimental hip-hop album, but there's songs that are just kind of straight rock. There's a lot to love about this album. It's kind of all over the place, but definitely feels like a conceptual piece of work as well. We are in the top 10 now with Expert in a Dying Field by New Zealand band The Beths. Oh my god, this is my indie record of the year for a reason. The harmonies, the songwriting, obviously, is so great. Honestly, this album is pretty simple and to the point. It's just a collection of a bunch of great indie songs. The outro to this album is fantastic. The title track is fantastic. Yeah, definitely check this one out. Oh my god. All the way up at the number 9 position is Being Funny in a Foreign Language by the 1975 with a little production help from Jack Antonoff. The songwriting on this album is super weird, but really interesting. It definitely stands out, and I think the production is fantastic too. Definitely their most concise record to date. I think the band needed to be reined in a little bit by Jack Antonoff to make a cohesive, tight album, and that's exactly what this is. At 8 is Natural Brown Prom Queen from Sudan Archives. A lot of people have been talking about this album this year, and for good reason. Just the way that this record evolves, how it brings so many different elements to the table, and she just kills it at every angle. I'm just so impressed by the production on this album. Just the way this record is tied together is so impressive. At 7 is an album full of pop bangers, CAPRISONGS by FKA Twigs. Definitely one of the best pop records of the year. I'm not hearing enough praises for this album, and maybe it's because it isn't as ambitious as other FKA Twigs projects. It literally is just a mixtape, but goddamn, is it an amazing mixtape. At number 6 is She Codes, and I guess this is what happens when you put two legendary figures in hip-hop together, Black Thought and Danger Mouse. Some of the craziest lyricism you'll ever hear, and the beats and just the way that this album is put together is fantastic. You can't really go wrong with these two artists, and they just happen to make an amazing record together. I would be shocked if they didn't. We are kicking off the top 5 with Motomami by Rosalia. Anybody who knows me knows how much I love this record. This album hits so hard, but it can also be totally gorgeous at points, like on the track Hentai. Yeah, I've obviously heard some criticisms of the lyricism from Spanish speakers, but I don't have to deal with that because I don't speak the language, so I can't really speak on that. But I think that this is some of the best production I've heard this year. Obviously drawing inspirations from artists like Arca and other producers that have been pushing music forward. So I think this record is fucking fantastic, and the fact that it isn't my pop album of the year is shocking, I know, but I think you know what other record is up there. At 4 is the very real punk record Baby from Petrol Girls. The riffs on this album are insane. The delivery is some of my favorite punk delivery I think I've ever heard, and the topics that are attacked on here aren't easy, but they were done in the best fashion possible, I think. So yeah, definitely check out this album. I guess this is my punk record of the year. And at 3 is my hip-hop album of the year, The Forever Story by J.I.D. This is the record that I always knew he was capable of making. It's full of bangers. It also shows off his voice that I didn't even know that he had. This album is so well executed. I think that this is the record that he envisioned he was going to make one day, and he did make it, which is so impressive, because this album is clearly ambitious, and sticking the landing like this is very hard to do. And the second best album of the year is Renaissance by Beyonce. This is a love letter to dance music. Beyonce is clearly just making an album that she would want to listen to, and the album that she would want to make. She has nothing left to prove, but this album just cements her as one of the greatest performers and artists of our time, because I say performers like she's done a tour yet, but I know that the tour is going to be absolutely crazy. Yeah, that's at number 2, so I think you know what number 1 is going to be. Yeah, I wish I could have shocked you guys, but at number 1, it's Answer Up There, Black Country New Road. The instrumentation, the songwriting, the lyricism, the delivery from Isaac is just so painful to listen to, but it is so captivating. It's still hard for me to put into words how amazing this album is, but it's one of the most jaw-dropping musical experiences I've ever had. I mean, the highest praise by everything that I say here. This album is mind-blowing. It's fantastic. It's amazing. You have to listen to it. If you haven't, it's not going to be for everybody, but yeah, it's one of the favorite things I've heard recently. That's that. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Let me know what your favorite album of the year is, whether you agree with my picks or you don't. I guess check out my Twitch and my Patreon and all of that stuff. All right. Okay. Bye, guys. I love you.